In a small, worn-down apartment on the outskirts of Chicago, two bright and lively 10-year-old twins lived with their mom. The twins were full of energy, always laughing and finding joy in the little things life had to offer. Their mother worked long hours as a nurse's aide, doing everything she could to make sure they had food on the table and clothes on their backs. Money was tight, but her love for them made up for what they lacked in material comforts. The kids weren't spoiled or bitter about their situation. Instead, they carried an optimism that lit up the room wherever they went. They loved school, played soccer in the park, and dreamed big dreams despite their circumstances. But one day, something happened that left them feeling uneasy. At school, the teacher announced an upcoming event called Bring Your Dad to School Day. It was meant to be a fun way for students to share a piece of their family life with classmates. For most kids, this sounded exciting, but for these twins, it felt like a heavy weight pressing down on their shoulders. You see, they didn't have a dad, at least not anymore. Their father had passed away when they were very young, leaving their mom to raise them all by herself. When they got home from school that day, they sat quietly at the kitchen table while their mom cooked dinner. She noticed their silence right away. Normally, the house was filled with chatter and laughter, but tonight it felt different. "What's going on?" she asked gently, wiping her hands on a towel before sitting beside them. One of the twins finally spoke up. "Mom, there's this thing at school. We're supposed to bring our dads next week, but we don't have one." Their mom sighed softly, her heart breaking a little for them. She pulled them close and hugged them tightly. "You know how much I love you both, right? And no matter what, we'll figure this out together." But even after their mom reassured them, the twins couldn't shake off the feeling of being left out. That night, lying in bed, they came up with an idea so bold and unexpected that it might just work. What if they asked someone else to step in as their dad for the day? Not just anyone, though. Someone who could really make a difference. They remembered seeing a news segment about a billionaire named Carter Hayes. He was known not only for his massive wealth, but also for his kindness and charity work. On TV, he talked about helping people and giving back to communities in need. Something about him stuck with the twins. Maybe it was the warmth in his smile, or the way he seemed genuinely interested in making the world better. The next morning, they decided to write him a letter. Sitting at the same kitchen table where they'd shared their worries with their mom, they scribbled down their thoughts on a piece of paper. The letter wasn't fancy, it was simple and heartfelt. They told him about their dad who wasn't around anymore and how much this school event meant to them. Then they politely asked if he'd consider pretending to be their dad for just one afternoon. When they finished writing, they folded the letter carefully and slipped it into an envelope. Their mom hesitated when they showed it to her. "Do you really think he'll respond?" she asked, trying to manage their expectations. "We won't know unless we try." One of the twins replied with determination shining in their eyes. With nothing to lose, they mailed the letter and waited anxiously for a reply. Days turned into weeks, and just when they started thinking maybe their letter had been ignored, something incredible happened. One evening, as they were finishing homework, their mom walked in holding a piece of paper. Her face lit up with disbelief. "It's from Carter Hayes' office," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "He wants to meet you." The twins looked at each other, wide-eyed and speechless. Had their crazy plan actually worked? Was the billionaire really going to meet them? The days leading up to the meeting were a mix of excitement and nerves. Their mom helped them pick out their best clothes, ironing every wrinkle until they looked neat and presentable. On the morning of the meeting, they stood outside Hayes Tower, staring up at the towering skyscraper that seemed to touch the clouds. This building represented everything their tiny apartment wasn't: wealth, power, and success. Yet, here they were, stepping inside, ready to meet the man who held all those things in his hands. As they rode the elevator to the top floor, their hearts pounded in their chests. Would he be kind? Would he laugh at their request? Or worse, would he turn them away? All these questions raced through their minds as the elevator doors opened, revealing a sleek, modern office space. And then they saw him. Carter Hayes stood there, tall and confident, dressed in a sharp suit. But instead of looking intimidating, his warm smile put them instantly at ease. He greeted them warmly, shaking their hands, and complimented them on their courage for reaching out. As they settled into chairs across from him, he listened intently to their story, nodding along as they explained why they needed his help. When they finished speaking, Carter leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. Finally, he smiled and said, "I think I can do more than just pretend to be your dad for a day." The twins exchanged confused glances. What did he mean? Little did they know, their lives were about to change in ways they never imagined. The twins sat in stunned silence, their eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of nervousness. Carter's words hung in the air. "I think I can do more than just pretend to be your dad for a day." What did that even mean? Their minds raced with possibilities, but they were too shy to ask. Instead, they looked at each other, then back at Carter, waiting for him to explain. Carter leaned forward, resting his elbows on his desk. His expression softened, and he spoke in a tone that was warm and genuine. "You two came to me with such honesty and courage," he began. "It made me realize how much this means to you. So, instead of just showing up for one afternoon, I want to make sure you feel supported, not just today, but moving forward." The twins' mom, who had been quietly sitting beside them, let out a small gasp. She hadn't expected anything like this. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her purse, unsure whether to feel hopeful or overwhelmed. "What? What exactly are you saying?" she asked hesitantly. Carter smiled reassuringly. "I'm saying that if you'll let me, I'd like to step into this role not just for the school event, but as someone who can be there for these kids when they need guidance or support. Of course, I know I can never replace their father, and I wouldn't try to, but maybe I can help fill some of the gaps." The room fell silent for a moment. The twins exchanged glances again, trying to process what they'd just heard. A billionaire man they'd only seen on TV was offering to be part of their lives. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie, but there was no doubt in their minds that he meant every word. There was sincerity in his voice, a kindness that went beyond his wealth or status. One of the twins finally broke the silence. "But why would you do that for us? We're nobody special." Carter chuckled softly, shaking his head. "That's where you're wrong," he said. "You're incredibly special. Most people wouldn't have the guts to write a letter like the one you sent me. You didn't give up, you reached out, even though it must have been scary. That takes bravery, and I respect that." Their mom wiped away a tear that had started rolling down her cheek. She couldn't believe what was happening. For years, she'd done everything she could to provide for her children, often feeling like she was failing because she couldn't give them everything they deserved. And now, here was this stranger stepping in not out of pity, but out of genuine care. Carter continued, "Look, I grew up without much myself. My parents worked hard, but we struggled a lot. I know what it's like to feel like the world is against you sometimes. But I also know how powerful it is to have someone believe in you, even when things seem impossible. If I can be that person for you two, then I'd consider it an honor." The twins listened intently, their initial nervousness melting away. They felt seen and valued in a way they never had before. For so long, they tried to blend into the background, not wanting to draw attention to their struggles. But now, sitting across from Carter, they realized that their story mattered and that someone cared enough to listen. After a few more minutes of conversation, Carter stood up and gestured toward the window. "Come here for a second," he sighed. The twins followed him, their mom trailing behind. Outside the glass walls of his office, the city stretched out below them, bustling with life. Cars honked, people hurried along sidewalks, and skyscrapers towered above the streets. "This view reminds me of something important," Carter said, pointing toward the horizon. "No matter how big or overwhelming the world might seem, everyone has the power to create change, to build something meaningful. You two already have that spark inside you. All you need is a little support to let it shine." He turned to face them, his eyes filled with determination. "So here's what we're going to do. First, I'll come to your school party and play the part of dad for the day. But after that, we'll figure out how I can continue being a positive influence in your lives. Whether it's helping with school, introducing you to new opportunities, or just being someone you can talk to, I'm here for it. The twins' faces lit up with excitement. For the first time in a long while, they felt a sense of hope they hadn't known before. Their mom hugged them tightly, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't find the words to express her gratitude, but Carter seemed to understand. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder and gave her a reassuring nod. Before they left, Carter handed them each a small notebook and pen. "Here's a little something to get started," he said with a grin. "Whenever you have an idea, a dream, or even a problem you're trying to solve, write it down. Then bring it to me, and we'll work through it together." The twins clutched the notebooks tightly, feeling like they'd just been given a treasure. As they walked out of the office, they couldn't stop smiling. For the first time, the weight of their challenges felt lighter, replaced by a newfound sense of possibility. On the drive home, their mom kept glancing at them in the rearview mirror. "Can you believe this is really happening?" she asked, still in disbelief. "I think we're dreaming," one of the twins replied, laughing nervously. "But if it is a dream, I don't ever want to wake up." Over the next few days, the twins couldn't stop talking about Carter. They told their friends at school about the meeting, though they left out the part about him agreeing to help beyond the party. They didn't want anyone to think they were bragging or getting special treatment. Still, the anticipation of having him show up at the event filled them with excitement. Finally, the big day arrived. The twins woke up early, buzzing with energy. Their mom helped them get ready, making sure their clothes were neat and their hair was combed. As they headed to school, they spotted Carter waiting outside in a modest SUV. He wasn't wearing a fancy suit this time. Instead, he dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, blending in perfectly with the other parents. When he stepped out of the car and waved at them, the twins ran over, nearly knocking him over with hugs. Carter laughed, ruffling their hair. "Ready to have some fun?" he asked. They nodded enthusiastically, unable to contain their joy. As they walked into the school together, heads turned. Other kids whispered curiously, wondering who this tall, confident man was. Some recognized him from TV, while others simply admired how effortlessly cool he seemed throughout the day. Carter played the role of the perfect dad, he cheered loudly during games, helped set up tables for snacks, and even joined in a silly dance-off organized by the teachers. At one point, he sat down with the twins to help them with an art project, patiently guiding them as they painted pictures of their dreams for the future. What amazed everyone, though, was how genuine Carter appeared. He wasn't there to show off his wealth or impress anyone. Instead, he connected with the children and teachers, sharing stories about his own childhood and encouraging the kids to believe in themselves. By the end of the day, the twins felt like celebrities. Classmates swarmed around them asking questions about their cool billionaire dad, and for once, they felt proud rather than self-conscious about their circumstances. As the sun began to set, signaling the end of the party, Carter gathered the twins and their mom for a quiet moment. "So, how did it go?" he asked, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "It was amazing," one of the twins exclaimed, beaming with happiness. "Everyone loved you," Carter chuckled. "Well, I had a pretty great time too, but remember, this is just the beginning. We've got a lot more to look forward to." And with those words, he sealed the promise of a brighter future, one that neither the twins nor their mom could have imagined just weeks earlier. Little did they know, Carter's involvement in their lives was about to lead to changes far greater than any of them could have anticipated. The school party was over, but the buzz it created lingered long after the last balloon had been popped and the final game wrapped up. The twins couldn't stop talking about how amazing the day had been. It wasn't just because Carter had shown up, it was the way he'd made everyone feel included, valued, and special. He didn't act like a billionaire. Instead, he blended in seamlessly with the parents, chatting with teachers, laughing with kids, and even helping clean up after the event. For the twins, having him there felt like a dream come true. They weren't used to being the center of attention, especially not in such a positive way. But that day they were surrounded by classmates who kept asking questions about their cool dad. One kid asked if he owned a private jet. He did. Another wanted to know if he could buy them video games. He laughed and said no. And a teacher joked that maybe he could fund the school's new library. He smiled, but didn't answer, even though Carter had agreed to play the role of their dad for just one afternoon. His presence left a lasting impression on everyone, including himself. As he packed away folding chairs and stacked paper plates into trash bags alongside other parents, he realized something important. These moments mattered far more than anything else in his busy life. For years, he'd focused on building his empire, making deals, attending meetings, and chasing success. But standing there, surrounded by laughter and simple joys, he felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in ages. By the time the cleanup was done, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the playground. Carter gathered the twins and their mom near the school gate for a quiet chat before heading home. "So," he said, leaning against the fence with a relaxed smile, "how did today feel? Did I pass as your dad?" The twins burst out laughing. "You were awesome," one of them exclaimed. "Everyone thought you were the coolest dad ever." Their mom nodded, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for doing this. I don't think they'll forget this day anytime soon." Carter shook his head slightly. "Actually, I won't forget this day. You three reminded me of something really important. Family isn't just about blood or money. It's about showing up, caring, and being there when people need you." His words hung in the air, heartfelt and sincere. The twins looked at each other, unsure of what to say next. Their mom, however, spoke up. "What happens now? I mean, you've already done so much for us. We don't expect anything more." Carter tilted his head thoughtfully. "That's exactly why I want to keep going," he replied. "You're not expecting anything from me, yet you trusted me enough to invite me into your lives. That kind of trust deserves action, not just words." He paused for a moment, letting his thoughts settle. Then, with a warm smile, he added, "Let's have dinner together tomorrow night. Just the four of us. No cameras, no reporters, just a normal evening where we can talk and get to know each other better. Does that sound okay?" The twins exchanged excited glances. "Really? You do that?" one of them asked, barely able to contain their excitement. "Of course," Carter said. "Why wouldn't I? Besides, I think pizza sounds pretty good right about now." The next evening, Carter picked them up in his SUV and drove them to a cozy little restaurant tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. It wasn't fancy or expensive, just a place with red-checkered tablecloths, flickering candles, and the smell of garlic bread wafting through the air. To the twins, it felt magical. They'd never been to a place like this before, where the atmosphere was warm and inviting, and the food seemed almost too delicious to be real. As they dug into slices of cheesy pizza and sipped fizzy sodas, Carter asked them questions about their lives. He wanted to know what they liked about school, what kinds of books they enjoyed reading, and whether they had any hobbies or dreams they wanted to share. At first, the twins were hesitant, unsure of how much to reveal. But as the conversation flowed naturally, they opened up, sharing bits and pieces of their world with him. One of them mentioned wanting to become an engineer someday, while the other dreamed of becoming a teacher. Their mom chimed in, explaining how hard they worked in school despite their challenges at home. Carter listened intently, nodding along and occasionally jotting notes in the small notebook he always carried with him. When dessert arrived, gooey chocolate cake that melted in their mouths, he leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You two are incredible," he said. "Do you know that? Most people spend their whole lives trying to figure out what they want to do, and here you are, already dreaming big at 10 years old." The twins blushed, unused to receiving compliments like this. "We just want to make our mom proud," one of them admitted shyly. Carter glanced at their mom, who was watching her children with tears in her eyes. "Well, you're definitely doing that," he said softly. "But let me tell you something. I'm proud of you too, and I want to help you chase those dreams, whatever they may be." After dinner, Carter surprised them with a trip to a nearby park. The evening air was cool, and the stars twinkled above as they strolled along winding paths lined with trees. Carter pointed out constellations in the sky, telling stories about Greek mythology and sparking their curiosity. For the twins, it felt like stepping into a fairy tale of billionaire, teaching them about the universe under a blanket of stars. Before dropping them off at home, Carter handed each twin a small box wrapped in shiny paper. "Here's a little something to remember tonight by," he said with a wink. Inside the boxes were watches simple yet elegant, with engravings on the back that read, "To my honorary kids, never stop dreaming." The twins stared at the gifts, speechless. Their mom hugged Carter tightly, overwhelmed by his generosity. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You already have," Carter replied. "Just seeing their smiles is thanks enough." Over the next few weeks, Carter became a regular part of their lives. He visited their apartment for family dinners, played board games with the twins, and even helped them practice math problems when they struggled with homework. He didn't try to take over their lives or overshadow their mom. He simply stepped in wherever he was needed, offering guidance and support without imposing himself. One Saturday morning, he showed up with tickets to a science museum. "Thought we could spend the day learning something new," he said with a grin. The twins squealed with excitement. Grabbing their jackets and racing to the car. At the museum, they marveled at interactive exhibits, built miniature robots, and gazed at dinosaur skeletons towering overhead. Carter walked beside them, answering their endless questions and encouraging them to explore. For the first time, they felt like the world was full of possibilities, and that someone believed in them enough to show them all it had to offer. By the end of the day, the twins were exhausted but exhilarated. As they drove home, one of them turned to Carter and said, "This was the best day ever. Thank you." Carter smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You deserve every bit of it," he replied. "And there's plenty more where that came from." Little did the twins and their mom know, Carter was planning something even bigger, a gesture that would change not only their lives, but also the entire community. His involvement with their family had sparked an idea in his mind, one that would bring hope and opportunity to countless others facing similar struggles. But for now, the focus remained on building trust, creating memories, and showing the twins that they were worthy of love and support. Each moment spent together strengthened the bond between them, proving that family isn't defined by biology or wealth. It's about showing up, listening, and caring deeply. And as the days turned into weeks, the twins began to realize that Carter wasn't just pretending to be their dad for a day. In his own unique way, he was becoming a permanent part of their story, a guiding light in a world that often felt dark and uncertain. As the weeks went by, Carter's presence in the twins' lives became a steady and comforting constant. He wasn't just a wealthy man who showed up occasionally to hand out gifts or pay for outings. He was someone who genuinely cared about their well-being. Every interaction, no matter how small, felt meaningful. Whether it was helping them with homework, cheering them on during soccer practice, or simply listening to their day-to-day stories, Carter made sure they knew he was there for them. One evening, after another family dinner at their apartment, Carter pulled out his phone and scrolled through some photos. "You remember that science museum we visited last month?" he asked, showing them pictures of the twins grinning in front of dinosaur skeletons and interactive exhibits. They nodded eagerly, recalling how much fun they'd had exploring the place together. "Well," Carter continued, leaning forward with a thoughtful expression, "I've been thinking about something bigger, something that could help not just you two, but other kids like you." The twins exchanged curious glances. Their mom looked up from clearing the table, intrigued by what he meant. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice tinged with both curiosity and caution. Carter smiled warmly. "I want to renovate your local community center, the one near the park where you guys play sometimes. It's old, run down, and honestly, it doesn't give kids the resources they deserve. I'm thinking of turning it into a safe space where children can learn, grow, and have fun, all while being supported by mentors and volunteers." Their Mom froze mid-step, holding a stack of plates in her hands. "Are you serious?" she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Absolutely," Carter replied. "And I don't just mean slapping a fresh coat of paint on the walls. We're talking computers, books, art supplies, sports equipment, you name it. Plus, programs designed to help kids discover their talents and pursue their dreams. Maybe even tutoring sessions, workshops, and career guidance." The twins stared at him, their mouths agape. For so long, they'd seen their neighborhood as a place full of challenges, potholed streets, broken streetlights, and limited opportunities. But now, Carter was offering them a chance to transform it into something better. Something hopeful. "But why would you do all this?" their mom finally managed to ask, her voice trembling slightly. "This isn't just about us anymore, it's about the whole community." Carter leaned back in his chair, his gaze softening. "Because you inspired me," he said simply. "When those twins wrote me that letter, they reminded me of my own childhood. Growing up, I didn't have much either. My parents worked hard, but we struggled to make ends meet. What kept me going were the people who believed in me, the teachers who stayed late to help me study, the neighbors who shared meals when times were tough, and the coaches who pushed me to try harder." He paused, looking directly at the twins. "You two are fighters. You faced challenges most adults couldn't handle, and yet you still dream big. That kind of resilience deserves support, not just from me, but from everyone around you. If I can create an environment where more kids like you thrive, then I'll consider it time well spent." Tears welled up in their mom's eyes as she sat down beside her children. She reached out and placed a hand on Carter's arm. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. This is more than we ever imagined." "You don't have to say anything," Carter replied gently. "Just let me do this for you, for the twins, and for every kid in this neighborhood who needs a little extra help." Over the next few months, Carter threw himself into the project with the same energy and determination that had made him a billionaire. He hired architects, contractors, and designers to revamp the community center. But he didn't stop there. He personally visited schools, churches, and local organizations to gather input from residents. He wanted to ensure the center would meet the actual needs of the community, not just his vision of what it should be. The twins played a role too. Carter invited them to join him on site visits, encouraging them to share their ideas. One twin suggested adding a basketball court because every kid loves hoops, while the other insisted on including a reading nook filled with colorful cushions and shelves stocked with adventure novels. Carter listened carefully, jotting down notes and promising to include everything they mentioned. Word spread quickly throughout the neighborhood about the renovations. At first, people were skeptical. "Why would a billionaire care about our community?" some muttered. Others worried it was just a publicity stunt. But as construction progressed and Carter continued showing up week after week, sometimes in jeans and work boots, rolling up his sleeves to help move furniture or paint walls, the skepticism faded. Slowly but surely, trust began to grow. On opening day, the newly renovated community center buzzed with excitement. Bright murals covered the exterior walls, depicting scenes of hope and unity. Inside, the space was unrecognizable. A state-of-the-art computer lab sat adjacent to a cozy library stocked with hundreds of books. There was a music room equipped with instruments, an art studio brimming with supplies, and a fully functional gymnasium complete with a shiny new basketball court. Parents brought their children, eager to see what Carter had created. Local leaders gave speeches, thanking him for his generosity. But the real stars of the event were the twins. Standing beside Carter on a small stage, they cut the ribbon alongside him, officially declaring the center open. As applause erupted, Carter bent down to speak directly to the twins. "This is your legacy," he told them quietly. "You started this journey, not me. Never forget that." In the weeks that followed, the community center became a hub of activity. Kids poured in after school, taking advantage of the resources available. Some joined basketball teams, others signed up for art classes, and many attended tutoring sessions to improve their grades. Parents volunteered their time, helping supervise activities and organize events. The sense of pride and ownership among residents grew stronger each day. For the twins, life changed in ways they hadn't anticipated. Not only did they have access to incredible opportunities, but they also found themselves stepping into leadership roles. Teachers noticed their confidence skyrocketing. Friends looked up to them, seeing them as role models, and Carter, he remained a constant source of encouragement, always checking in to see how they were doing. But perhaps the most profound impact was on their mom. For years, she carried the weight of raising her children alone, often feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of her responsibilities. Now, she had someone she could rely on, not just financially, but emotionally. Carter's involvement gave her peace of mind, knowing her kids had a mentor who genuinely cared about their future. One evening, as the four of them sat around the kitchen table sharing pizza, Carter handed each twin a folder. "Open it," he urged, his eyes twinkling with excitement. Inside, they found brochures and application forms for prestigious scholarship programs. "These are for high school," Carter explained. "They'll cover tuition, books, extracurriculars, everything. All you need to do is keep working hard and stay focused on your goals." The twins stared at the folders, stunned. Their mom burst into tears, unable to hold back her emotions any longer. "How can we ever repay you?" she asked between sobs. Carter shook his head firmly. "You already have," he said. "By trusting me enough to let me into your lives, you've given me something invaluable, a reminder of what truly matters." As the night wore on, laughter filled the room. The twins joked about which college dorm rooms they'd decorate first, while their mom teased Carter about becoming an official member of their family. Though he never officially adopted them, Carter had become far more than just a benefactor. He was a friend, a mentor, and in many ways, the father figure they'd always longed for. Little did they know, this was only the beginning. Carter's actions had set off a ripple effect, inspiring others to step up and contribute to the community. The twins' courage in writing that initial letter had sparked a chain reaction, one that would continue to touch countless lives for years to come. Years passed, and the twins grew into young adults. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were thriving. The community center Carter had built became a cornerstone of their neighborhood, a place where kids laughed, learned, and dreamed, without limits. It wasn't just about basketball courts or art supplies. It was about giving people hope. And that hope had spread far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The twins, who once felt invisible in their small apartment, now stood, tall as leaders in their own right. One of them pursued engineering, driven by a passion to build affordable housing for families like theirs. The other became a teacher, determined to inspire children the way Carter had inspired them. Both credited their success not only to their hard work, but also to the man who had stepped into their lives when they needed him most. Carter didn't stop at helping the twins. Inspired by their courage, he launched a nationwide initiative called Fathers of the Future. The program focused on mentoring children who lacked paternal figures, pairing them with volunteers who could offer guidance, support, and encouragement. He traveled across the country, speaking at schools, conferences, and community events, sharing the story of how two brave kids had changed his perspective on life. "I used to think success was all about money," Carter often said during these talks. "But then I met a family who showed me what really matters: love, kindness, and showing up when people need you. Those twins taught me more than I ever taught them." Back home, the bond between Carter and the twins only deepened with time. He attended every milestone in their lives: graduations, birthdays, even parent-teacher meetings when they struggled with college applications. Though he wasn't their biological father, he filled a void they hadn't realized existed until he walked into their lives. Their mom often joked that she'd gained not one, but 3 kids because Carter seemed to grow fonder of her cooking and insisted on being part of every family dinner one summer afternoon. Years after that first meeting, the twins decided to surprise Carter. They planned a picnic at the park near the community center, inviting their mom, Carter, and a few close friends. As they sat under the shade of an old oak tree, munching on sandwiches and sipping lemonade, one of the twins pulled out a small box wrapped in brown paper. "What's this?" Carter asked, raising an eyebrow curiously. Open it. The twin replied with a grin. Inside the box was a framed photo of the same picture from the Science Museum trip years ago, where Carter stood proudly beside the twins in front of a towering dinosaur skeleton. Beneath the photo, engraved in bold letters, were the words, "To our honorary dad, you believed in us when no one else did." Carter stared at the gift, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. For a moment he was speechless. Then, clearing his throat, he looked at the twins and their mom, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I did to deserve such amazing people in my life," he admitted, "but I'm grateful every single day." Their mom smiled, softly, reaching over to squeeze his hand. "You gave us something we never thought we'd find, a sense of belonging. That's worth more than anything." As the years rolled on, the impact of Carter's actions continued to ripple outward. The community center he'd built inspired similar projects in cities across the nation. People began donating time, money, and resources to create safe spaces or underserved neighborhoods. Local businesses partnered with schools to provide internships and job training programs. Entire communities came together, united by a shared vision of lifting each other up. For the twins, seeing their hometown transform was surreal. Kids who once played soccer on cracked pavement now practiced on lush green fields. Students who struggled to afford textbooks now had access to libraries stocked with everything they needed. Parents who worked multiple jobs to make ends meet found relief through childcare services offered at the center. It was proof that one act of kindness could spark a revolution. When the twins graduated from college, they returned to their roots, not to leave, but to give back. One started working with the city government to design affordable housing projects, ensuring every family had a safe place to call home. The other took a teaching position at the local elementary school, using their classroom as a launchpad for dreams. Every lesson plan included a nod to resilience, reminding students that their circumstances didn't define their futures. Carter remained a constant presence in their lives, attending school plays, cheering at basketball games, and offering advice whenever they faced challenges. Though his empire continued to grow, he made sure to carve out time for the family he'd chosen. To him, wealth wasn't measured in dollars, it was measured in the smiles of the kids running through the community center. The hugs from the twins and the quiet moments spent talking with their mom over coffee. One crisp autumn evening, Carter hosted a celebration at the community center to mark its 10th anniversary. Hundreds of people gathered inside, including former students, volunteers, and neighbors whose lives had been touched by the project. The twins stood beside Carter on stage, looking out at the sea of faces illuminated by twinkling lights strung across the ceiling. "This place started with a simple idea," Carter began, addressing the crowd. "Two kids wrote me a letter asking if I'd pretend to be their dad for a day. At first, I thought it was a funny request, but it turned out to be the most important decision I ever made." He paused, glancing at the twins with a proud smile. "Those kids reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love, trust, and showing up when people need you. So tonight I want to thank everyone here for proving that point. Together, we've created something extraordinary." The room erupted in applause, but Carter quickly held up a hand to quiet the crowd. "There's one last thing I want to say," he added, his voice softening. "If you take anything away from tonight, let it be this. Never underestimate the power of a single act of kindness. A letter, a conversation, a helping hand, it can change someone's life forever." As the celebration wound down, Carter lingered behind, chatting with old friends and meeting new ones. The twins watched him from afar, marveling at how much he'd grown since that first meeting. Once a billionaire chasing success, he was now a man driven by purpose, a man who had found joy in giving rather than gaining. Their mom joined them, wrapping her arms around their shoulders. "You know," she said, her voice warm with gratitude, "none of this would have happened if you hadn't written that letter." The twins nodded, remembering the nervous excitement they'd felt while mailing it. Back then, they'd hoped for nothing more than a response. Instead, they'd received a lifetime of love, support, and opportunities they never dreamed possible. Today, the twins are grown, living fulfilling lives while staying rooted in their community. Carter remains a beloved figure, not because of his wealth, but because of the way he uses it to uplift others. Their story has been told countless times in newspapers, documentaries, and even books, but the heart of it remains unchanged. It's a story about courage, connection, and the transformative power of believing in someone. It's a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures, a letter, a handshake, a promise, can lead to the biggest changes. And it's proof that family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes it's the one you choose. And so, what began as a simple request from two hopeful children ended up changing countless lives, including Carter's own. Through laughter, tears, and countless memories, they proved that love knows no boundaries. Whether rich or poor, young or old, everyone has the power to make a difference. All it takes is a little faith and the willingness to step into someone's life when they need you most.